So if you see the story I pulled up here, this is off of trekmovie.com. This story actually, this actually came out. Let's see, let me get my cursor over here. Wow, there's a delay between the two screens. So this was actually posted by the trekmovie.com staff, so there's no particular individual contributed. And this actually came out yesterday. But as the headline reads, and this is the big thing, talk about content is king, because I have a segue here. It says, Pluto TV adding Star Trek channel. Free streaming of Star Trek The Next Generation begins next week on Pluto TV. Pluto TV is one of those services we've been pushing pretty heavy here on the Retro Rogues live show because it's got a lot of really great content, and they're about to get some even more great content with Pluto TV. So they're adding a Star Trek channel. So we're going to dig into this just a little bit. It says, Viacom CBS continues to take advantage of the opportunities created from its recent remerger, this time by adding a number of CBS shows to the Pluto TV free streaming service. Today, Viacom CBS announced 40 CBS-produced shows will be added to Pluto TV, the popular ad-supported streaming service Viacom purchased in 2019. And that was interesting because, Eric, you were the one that brought up the fact that Viacom owned Pluto TV, because we've been talking about Pluto TV, but I had no idea that they actually owned it until you brought it up. So it says, one of those shows will be Star Trek The Next Generation. A spokesperson for Pluto TV tells Trek Movie that TNG is the first series for a new Star Trek channel being added to the live streaming service, with more Star Trek series being added later. Along with this, it also says, in addition to Star Trek The Next Generation, starting on July 14th and continuing through the summer, the new slate of CBS programming on Pluto TV in the USA also includes Survivor, CSI Miami, The Amazing Race, Beverly Hills 90210, Everybody Hates Chris, Jack, McWhirter, Scorpion, and Numbers. Pluto TV will also begin streaming select episodes from the first 10 seasons of South Park. Now, you can obviously head over to trekmovie.com and read the rest of this story. But I thought this was really relevant because guess what, CBS All Access? I was looking to cut funds, and you're also gone. And the reason you were gone is twofold. The first one is I can now watch Next Gen over here on Pluto TV. And then the second one is, in all honesty, I have been having a lot of problems lately with CBS All Access on my Samsung television. My wife and I had been enjoying, and we're making our way through the good fight, and we started having all kinds of issues with it not wanting to work. And then it began to proliferate into other things. Now, Netflix still works fine. Hulu still works fine. Like everything else seems to be working just fine. But CBS All Access was absolutely giving me fits. So when I saw this announcement, I was like, well, wait, we're getting a Star Trek channel on Pluto TV. Well, you know, I already can watch a lot of it on Netflix. Now it's on Pluto TV. A lot of the Star Trek stuff is actually on Amazon Prime too. I was like, well, why am I continuing to pay for CBS All Access? So CBS All Access got the axe. Now, when Lower Decks comes on, Eric and I've talked about reviewing Lower Decks, so I'll resubscribe at that time so we can talk about Lower Decks. But as it currently sits, content is king, and I can watch Next Gen now in 3 different places, and they're getting a full Star Trek channel over here. So until Lower Decks or Strange New World starts, I think I'm just going to sit out CBS All Access. And I have attempted to report the problems I've had actually with CBS All Access to them so that they'll actually maybe take a look at the Samsung TV support and see if there's something they can do about it. But that email goes nowhere, and no one seems to be paying any attention to what's happening. So there you go.
This is an interesting story, and I was not aware of this. And this is you know, I'll say this, you know, as far as you know, Viacom CBS, I applaud this decision. This is awesome. It's great to give this kind of content for free. So I truly applaud this decision. You know, I didn't know this was happening, but it's got the wheels turning into my head about the bigger implications of this. And probably next week, I imagine we're going to be talking at least a little bit more about Peacock, because I believe Peacock starts its actual free service next week. So that might be something where we are able to actually get our hands on it and see exactly what's on the free service of Peacock and what's available, because they are going to have 3 tiers. So there's like I think an ad-based free service for Peacock. Right now, there's already I believe, ad-based but much more content service that's free for what is it, Comcast customers, people that have their cell phones through Comcast. And then there's going to be another tier of the premium content without ads. So they're going to have 3 tiers as of next week. And so it's interesting to me because there's been these rumors, and we've talked about a little bit about this idea of Viacom CBS sort of rebranding CBS All Access, which I have a lot of problems with CBS All Access too. And I mean that from a technical perspective, like Dave was talking about. I primarily watch my content on my PlayStation 4, and I was having all sorts of problems with CBS All Access on my PlayStation 4, where I get little hiccups and things like that. I've had those kind of problems on Disney Plus as well, to be honest. So I know a lot of the different companies don't seem to update their PlayStation 4 app all that well, and they seem to have problems all the time. Pluto is something that I haven't had a whole lot of problems with using on PlayStation 4. I don't use Pluto a whole lot, but I do go on Pluto from time to time. We actually reviewed Popeye, which was on Pluto, and that's why we decided to review it, because it was available there. But just looking at my crystal ball, I can't help but wonder if the Peacock's model works and does a good job. This idea of having a free version and then a pay version. I'm wondering if the Viacom CBS All Access, which that's all I can call it right now, when it comes around, because there's all sorts of talk about that, if it's going to do something exactly like Peacock. In particular, if Peacock is successful, if the model works and it gets a lot of attention and a lot of people are watching it. I kind of wonder if Pluto TV and CBS All Access might be merged together and actually become the Viacom CBS app. What do you think about that, Dave?
I could totally see that happening. I mean, just there's the long and the short of it. I could just totally see that happening. It would, in a way, it would make a lot of sense. So, and if you notice the way that they're migrating content over to Pluto TV, and this is not just like Legend Lone Ranger that some people might curiously want to watch. This is Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Right.
This is one of their most valuable, I would imagine, at least in terms of Star Trek. This is one of their most valuable properties that they have. Putting Next Gen on Pluto TV is a big deal. That's like putting original series. That's a big deal. So the fact that they're doing that with Next Gen, that says a lot. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do what you're saying, Eric. I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple weeks from now, that's what we're looking at. It would make sense.
And I do have to say, I want to contrast this decision about what's going on with AT&T, because we've talked about that, because I still don't understand it. I recently got access to HBO. I always confuse it. There's so many different HBOs. HBO Max. I finally got access to HBO Max because I have AT&T, and AT&T now offers HBO Max for free to AT&T cell phone subscribers like myself. I just think it's just funny how you have this situation where AT&T is competing with itself, where the DC division and the HBO division can't seem to get on the same page, and essentially HBO Max is having to borrow content from DC Universe to put on their DC section of HBO Max. It's just asinine to me. It's asinine. Contrast that to what CBS is doing. I should say Viacom CBS is doing, where Star Trek is pretty much everywhere, and they're not like taking away platforms, they're adding platforms and saying, hey, we know there are tons of people that love classic Trek. And, and I associate Next Gen also as classic Trek. It's just, there's tons of people. So they have it all over the place. As you mentioned it, there's stuff that you can find on Amazon Prime. There's stuff you can obviously find on CBS All Access. Now they're having stuff on Pluto. I usually watch Star Trek on the air digital subchannel called Heroes and Icons. They do six nights a week. They do hours and hours of Star Trek, starting with the original series all the way to Enterprise. And so Star Trek is like, they put it everywhere because they know people are going to watch it, wherever they can. And it just seems really, it just seems like a much better approach than what AT&T is doing right now, where basically you have this weird thing that's going on with DC Universe and, HBO Max, where they can't seem to get on the right page. And essentially what HBO Max has to do is shuffle through the content because they can't just have all the DC stuff. I'm just like, I would much more interested in the DC stuff than anything else on HBO Max. I'm a DC guy. And I just think it's a weird business decision. So I think what Viacom CBS is doing is much better because it seems like they really are getting on the same page with the Paramount content, CBS content, all that kind of stuff, as opposed to what AT&T and Time Warner are doing.
Yeah, it just, well, we've talked about it on the show. Like, I'm a big believer in the idea of the ad-supported content. I mean, it's basically what's helped keep broadcast television going, for the longest time. So it only makes sense to me that we would find a way to integrate it a little bit more. I think this is just the first of a lot of these moves. I think you're right on the money, Eric, with a lot of this. I think a lot of this is just going to come to pass. It's just a question of timing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. Interesting, man, because I didn't know about this, so that's pretty cool.
Well, I like I said, I was looking for some Streaming Wars stories and ran across this one. I was primarily just looking at just stuff for Pluto because I kind of like Pluto TV. And I was like, wow, this is huge. And I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. And, for a lot of our audience here at the Retro Rogues Live, I mean, we've got a lot of Star Trek fans. And I thought they would find it interesting that, pretty soon here on Pluto TV, you're going to be able to go get your Star Trek fix. So if you are not happy with what's been happening on, CBS All Access, well, here's a place where you might be able to go and get your Star Trek fix and not have to worry about that if you don't want to support it. So there you go.
That's pretty. What I really wonder too is if we're ever going to see some of the the new Trek. I call it new Trek with the NU, as far as like Discovery or Picard, Lower Decks, potentially the short treks. It would be interesting to see if any of that stuff ever shows up on Pluto.
Well, I think we will, just because hidden behind this ad right here is here's an ad for Discovery. Now they want you to go check out CBS All Access, but there's 1 week free trial. But no, I mean, in all honesty, I think eventually a lot of the new Trek is going to wind up on some of these services because they need to build that audience and they need to keep those people, for lack of a better term, engaged. You know what I mean? And what's happening with Trek. So, these fans need a way to access it, and as long as the, ad money is there to support what you're doing, I think we'll see. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised that if by the time Strange New Worlds rolls out, if Strange New Worlds isn't available to watch with ads on whatever this, new service that you're proposing, might eventually be called. I wouldn't be surprised. Just like when, they launched, was it UPN, and they had Voyager be the flagship show, for UPN. I wouldn't be surprised if Strange New Worlds doesn't turn out to be, the flagship content that they're going to want you to, because that's the thing. I think Discovery and some of these other shows could have found a bigger audience if they just weren't immediately behind a paywall. Right. And I think with Strange New Worlds, I mean, you've got to already a fan favorite captain. You've got a fan favorite number one, and you've got the Enterprise. And I could totally see where they could go, hey, this would be a great way. Let's use Strange New Worlds to launch our new app that has all this great content on it and get people over there. Because Strange New Worlds would be a draw that it would do that. So, but we'll see. We'll see. Like I said, I think a lot of this that you're proposing is going to come to pass. It's just a question of timing.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with Peacock, how that model received, that mixed model, I'm calling it. So